Good afternoon. Welcome to Shop Talks, which is a function of InKitchen.com, where I'm from, which is free information online, InKitchen.com, and Impressions Magazine and Impressions who put on this show. And then Hanes and Hirsch Solutions are also the sponsors of this. And I am very happy to have Michelle Moxley here, who is one of the more creative people in the industry. And I'm sure your minds will be blown. She is the, I don't know what her title is, but she is the technical guru of the show and M&R company. And she's graciously come out here to talk about hybrid printing and some other related topics.
Hello. So my name is Michelle Moxley. I am the Innovation Director at M&R. Hybrid printing is one of the stars of M&R right now. We have the digital Squeegee. So that is analog screen printing press with screens and then digital color applied to the surface of a screen print. So essentially you're printing underbases through screen printing mesh, and then you're applying CMYK color onto the surface of that, and then you can use special effects, you can use migration blockers, you can print on any kind of fabric. So it kind of takes screen printing to the next level. It reduces the amount of screens that you use. It reduces the setup times because all the colors are coming out in CMYK. And it kind of opens up space for you to do really creative projects. So I'm going to show you what some of the most recent innovations are in hybrid. Just so you kind of know where we are with the digital Squeegee, we have 66 units in the United States, and there's 53 more internationally. And we're growing at a rate of about 4 to 6 units a month. So it's really popular technology right now. A lot of people that have one unit have just recently gotten into 2 units because it reduces the size of your ink room. It reduces your whole front end setup. Your screen making gets more precise. And it's just a really exciting technology. Mostly it's been developed against high solid water base. This shirt that I'm wearing is high solid water base with a puff texture underneath and digital Squeegee on the surface. But then it also works with plastisol, so we've been doing some plastisol development recently. We can print face masks, gloves, polypropylene bags, safety vests. You can do transfers. This is a bag with a direct application. Because the CMYK ink, is being applied to the surface wet, you don't have to flash it. So you can print on things that would normally melt on a regular screen printing press.
And actually the digital press goes on not just M&R presses, is that right?
Yes, we have some on some competitors' equipment, and we test all the time to see if we can fit it onto any kind of equipment. It's a really cool technology, so just integrating it is fun. The only restriction is really that you want to have at least a 14-color press. Because it is a big unit, it takes out a chunk of your press, so you want to have enough space to print any kind of fabric.
We okay to hand these around?
Yeah, so that one is polypropylene, and then it had variable data. Variable data means that you're using a single underbase screen, and then the digital image on top is kind of changing on each print. So that one, if you got a different bag, it would have different colors in it. So these are some of the more recent advanced techniques that we've been playing with. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the digital Squeegee. This is just kind of the outliers. This is, I'll let you hold it up. This is foil inline, so it has a glue, and then you put a foil down, and then you put color on the top of it. So it's a full color digital foil. So that kind of effect is only possible with a hybrid unit, and then an inline foiling. This is plastisol. This is an HD plastisol, and then it has digital Squeegee print on top.
Many of these you have to have in your hand to really appreciate. So definitely make sure you get these as they go around.
So we did a project for autism awareness, and this has a puff under all the different colors. So if you can imagine running this on a analog screen printing press, you would be printing all those different colors of puff, or you would be printing one color and then all those different screens on top. And then it also has a glow in the dark, so it lights up blue because blue light is autism awareness, which would be almost impossible. You'd have to have a huge press. But with this, you're the underbase screens, the glow in the dark, the puff screen, and a top coat, you're at 5 screens. And all the color comes out the digital squeegee. The top coat gives you durability protection in the wash. So we do what is considered Nike standard durability testing. So it's about 50 standard washes with 5 tumble dries. And these, for the most part, everything you're looking at passes, not the bag.
The bag itself doesn't pass that test, I don't think.
No. Okay, so these 3 are like summer camp tees, and they have variable data. So there's a counselor tee, and there's a camper tee, and then there's different images in the top for the different campers, so if they were like in different groups. And you print them all at the same time. So you just use a youth palette, you run all the shirts, all the variations come out the digital squeegee, and this is Plastisol ink, so it's 2 screens.
So what are the limitations on the variable data? Can you?
So with the digital squeegee, your limitation is that you're restricted to your underbase screen because you're using a single silhouette for all of your variations. So in the camper tee, it's like a perfect fit. But if you were doing every shirt's different, that's where you're going to pivot over to a digital piece of equipment. But you're going to lose some of the special effects and maybe some of the fabrics. That really is where you're looking at a volume-based factory. What is your volume? How many pieces per unit or per order do you need to produce? And then you start to tailor the equipment to those kinds of applications.
It does work like resort wear, where you can have a format and then it could go for many, many locations as long as the
overall format
overall
stays the
was
same.
the same.
Yeah,
for the
so like
underprint.
name drops is fine, especially if you incorporated it into the art, because you just would make different pieces of art. But if you have the name drop as a secondary location, then you might have a little bit of issues if you're running different colors, where it might be more just digital. Now, if you're using lighter shirts, you can print directly to the shirt and then just put a like band of top coat over the top. And we've done face masks with different, like, we did monster masks for Halloween, and they had little different monster mouths on them. And for white masks, it was all the same top coat. But dark masks, you wouldn't be able to do that. So in general, you're looking at a simpler separation process. You're just making underbases, and then you're separating out any additional effects or top coats. And then if you want, you can run additional colors, like specific PMS matches, fluorescent colors, things that CMYK is not capable of. But
Pepsi Blue.
Yeah. In general, you don't have to worry about knowing like a full color simulated process separation style. This separation process is so what used to take me about 3 hours to do like a full color simulated process separation in digital squeegee is about 20 minutes. And then we have been playing around with some automations to make that even faster. And then variable data, we've been playing around with automations where you could actually just populate each print so it has a little bit of a variation. Marshall is here somewhere. He had a really good idea about like college or high school graduates getting their class shirt with something for them that was specific. If you can take data like that and kind of feed it into your artwork, you can get really specific variation in mass production. So one of the cool things you can try with variable data with the digital squeegee, and this is on my computer screen, so it's a little bit hard to see, but we had a restaurant, it was near the beach. They do like a yearly order of like 300 pieces. They come in, it's a full color illustration, so it lends itself to the digital squeegee just because you're cutting down screens and you're having a faster setup. But then while they're there, you take the artwork and you customize it. So you have one that shows a Christmas theme and it's red and green and you put some snow in the background. And you have one for October that's pink and it raises breast cancer awareness. And you offer these to them as digital images, and if they like, they could run 5 pieces of each one on their order, and you're giving them ways to advertise throughout the year to promote their businesses using this variable data aspect. And that's one way that people get into variable data with the digital squeegee. It can be a challenge to start with variable data because you're asking somebody, hey, give me like more than one good piece of artwork, and one is usually challenging. But if you take that on yourself and then show people examples, it expands that space. One of our customers, one of the first customers that got variable data was a marijuana dispensary. They came in and everything they printed had different like marijuana buds on it. And I was always joking, the guys that were high figured it out first. Okay, so let's look at just straight digital a little bit, because there's a lot going on there that's really creative as well. And it's really interesting to kind of see how these technologies are starting to blend together. So a lot of this is driven by volume-based factory. Am I producing the digital squeegee we usually say is like 72 to 450 pieces. That's its sweet spot. But if you want to run, 250,000 units, we have customers that do that because you get that kind of control, especially on that image. With digital, it kind of goes from that 0 to 72 place unit, but you have a little bit of restriction on your fabrics. You're not doing as many different fabrics, and there's a restriction on special effects. But that doesn't mean there are none, so I brought some. You can do transfers, so this polypropylene bag is back. DTF is possible on some machines. Some machines
Want to explain what DTF is?
So it's direct to film. It's printing on a pre-treated transfer sheet. So digital requires a pre-treatment on the fabric that causes the white ink to fuse to the color. If you do DTF, you're printing color first and then white. The transfer paper has the pre-treatment on it and causes the fusion. And then you're putting the adhesive powder on the back, just like a screen print, and then you're gluing it to the surface. And that's one way you can print on some more technical fabrics or hats or polypropylene. This isn't the best example, but I love these prints. So we're doing some hybrid digital analog matching. This one's lighter than that one because it has puff in it. So puff lightens in ink, and so my choice was to lighten the digital one to match, but I didn't like that because it made it look dull. But that's the digital version of the tail sweep. And then we've been focusing in on doing retail quality digital. So that means that we're trying to pass, and we are passing the same test for Nike that we do on analog. So 50 standard washes, 5 tumble dries, trying to hit those color ranges, trying to incorporate as many colors. Now one thing to look at is what color ranges the digital equipment comes with. Is it CMYK? Is it hex? What is the hex? Hex usually means red and green, sometimes purple and orange. It's an expanded CMYK gamut, so it gives you a little bit larger color range. And then we've also been building color libraries so that when you output to these machines, you get repeated PMS matching, and you have control of the machine. One of the things that always bothered me in digital is that with automations, I'm giving a lot of my control away, and if I didn't like the result, I'd either have to trick it or I'd say it can't do that. So I wanted to be able to completely control the digital press just the same way I control a screen printing press, so that's what we built. And automation is amazing, but it's always a limited ability because it's a box. I'm saying you put this information in, this is what comes out. If I wanted to control it, then I want to be able to go around the automation. That is all, and should all be inside of digital equipment. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
This is a Moment merch. The guy that got duct taped to the chair on the airline the other day. Don't be that guy. So the idea is like something happens and you can just immediately output. You get that moment kind of access to the equipment. That's a little harder in analog screen printing or even the digital squeegee when you have to go through the separation process. Digital equipment, if you can think it and you can execute it, you can output it.
You also can sample it faster. That's a big thing, right? I mean, if you were going to screen print something like that, you would have to then if it was wrong, you got another couple
You
days.
get another couple of days. So that's also actually why it's a volume-based idea. If you can get all of your equipment matching, so you have a DTG, you have hybrid, you have analog, and you're able to make all of that match, then when something comes in, you need to make a sample. I don't have time to set it up over here, I can output it over here. If they're only going to produce one, then you can output it over here. If their order changes from 1 to 1,000, you can move it over here, and everything is matching, and you start to get some consistency. And what ends up happening is your factory model kind of flips. It becomes volume based, so your pricing has to include all of your equipment.
I think to a lot of people's surprise, the digital equipment is the best tool that screen printers ever had. So if you were going to already know you're printing 20,000 shirts, you still don't want to set it up and make a sample. So the more the digital that you're talking about starts to match screen printing, you don't set it up and the customer says, well, can you make that an inch smaller? Or we really don't like that color. Can you change a different color of ink? And if you do all that digitally, it really helps your screen printing operation.
Yeah. So to that point, this is an example of an automation. So this is just an automatic output, taking a really nice piece of artwork, having a really good automation, but it comes out and you get like a brilliant print. Now, if I wanted to flip that over to screen print, I might struggle a little bit because the automation did all the work. If I wanted to separate it and print it digitally, this one, I can take the same separation and print it in screens, or on the digital Squeegee. Now I would have to add the color for the screen print analog part, but for the digital Squeegee, this is matching. So I'm able to go hybrid or DTG, and I can get something really similar. If I use a more high solid ink, like on this shirt, then I can add more ink to the digital equipment to make it more high solid. Well, let me show you some more. So this is another example of a separated image that I can also print screen print. It's kind of simple, it's just red. And I could probably get away with just a few screens, but I can make a sample, I can make a screen print, and all of that would happen pretty fast.
And without a crew of 4 people.
Yeah. So if I want to, I can add ink to my digital equipment because I took full control of it. So in this case, I've put down a lot of white. So one thing I do, and I hope I'm not picking on anybody, is I go online and they say, don't print a polar bear in a snowstorm. So that's what I go print on a digital piece of equipment, because it can be hard. But in this case, I added a bunch of ink, and if you hold it, when you look at it, you'll see a pattern come out of it. That's a laser etched paper that's been pressed into the surface that created a visual effect like a special effect. I have another one here that we just made yesterday. One of our team members is building out a snake, and this has a snake pattern in it. It's the same girl that was separated earlier, printed with different ink, and then the snake pattern is applied to the surface. These are all digital prints, digital effects. We've done lenticular, so if you look at it and it turns, you'll see different images, HD, all on digital equipment. We've also been applying screen printing rules to the digital equipment. So this is an example of a comfort wash, and it's the first one there is migrating. It's a little bit pink.
Hold that one up too. I want to hold them both up.
And then this one has a different print application that is mimicked after screen printing, and it's not migrating. So we're taking and integrating all of this screen print knowledge into the digital print space so that you don't feel like there's anything that you don't know, or you don't feel uncomfortable. Or if you don't know screen printing, you can be taught these things. It's all about education, trying to use the equipment, playing around, and having the control of the equipment allows you to do that. And here's another example. So this one is not with the migration blocking, and it has a little bit of migration, but it still makes an effective print. It kind of creates that kind of washed out vintage look. So everything that you did in screen printing still applies, and even more so, you can apply the same techniques. So the last part of this is just looking towards the future. So I've been visiting some smart factories recently in other industries. We went to one that does machining and uses raw metal materials to make parts, and then another that does vertical farming for organic farming. And then I've been researching several others. There's certain things that they all have in common. They use a lot of autonomous vehicles. They have command centers. One thing that I was talking about a couple years ago was a Moneyball project that I ran in a factory in Honduras. And it was about collecting data and looking at your waste and looking at your consumptions and looking at your times on your setups so that you could narrow everything and maximize your profits. This is the same concept that goes into smart factories. As you move into a factory space that's driven more by volume than it was by knowing that the orders would be large volume. You might have somebody come in with 1 that turns into 1,000, or somebody with 1,000 that comes back for 2. Being able to be flexible and meet those demands and not have any of those costs overweigh everything that you're doing is really important. So that's where the smart factory is kind of coming from. It's an autonomous system. So if you think about the way we move skids around, there's a lot of robots now that are doing that kind of a work. They're aware of humans, they're cobots. If you think about loading is really difficult, and it's a very skilled job. In fact, a lot of the brands that I work with, when they complain about things being off a little bit, I make them load, and they don't complain anymore. It's hard. A robot really can't.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. A robot really can't just pick up that job and do it because shirts aren't consistent, humans aren't the same shape, and placements and art and palettes and things move around. But a robot can help do that job. So that's where something like a cobot comes in, and you're actually reducing the specific skilled labor to just giving the robot the shirt and maybe having it load it more accurately. So a lot of industry is popping up right now. It's Industry 4.0 that's in that space, smart factories. They contain LEED certification, so that's really looking at end-of-life manufacturing. What am I throwing away? What is my waste factor? How is that affecting my bottom line? How is that affecting the environment? The LEED certification demands that we have better factory and better workflow and better waste consumption. They're modular. So one of the new technologies coming out from M&R is indexing DTG. So a machine that actually moves in an indexing pattern like a screen print press, but it's printing DTG. So that requires an operator to keep up with it versus pushing a button to have it go in and print, which requires just the speed of the operator. So you're guaranteeing a volume output using an indexing machine. But you're also kind of spreading out the application, which allows for add-ons. So the future is going to be modular. That means 3D printing. That means adding pre-treatment in line. That means being able to adjust for the specific fabrics on the fly because you're using computer integrated systems. All of these things allow you to have a volume factory that can produce a unit of 1 and a unit of 1,000,000 for about the same cost. In fact, some of the smart factories of the future, they will create 3D products before they exist. They'll create a full 3D version, and that will guarantee results on their output. And one of the factories that did this studied their output, and they cut 113 minutes off their process just by creating 3D objects before they existed, because it takes the questioning out of what you're doing. So using more integrated cyborg automated systems allows you to make more intelligent decisions without as much indecisive kind of unknown behavior, or having turnover in employees isn't going to affect your bottom line as much because you're kind of protected. And then one of the things that we've integrated at M&R and that we see inside of smart factories is using augmentation. So if you have a phone or a device, looking through that at what the problem is and allowing a computer to recognize what's happening and assist an employee and making decisions. It's not like that 1984 idea where we're all going to be overtaken by the robots. It's more like what you carry around in your pocket right now, helping you do your job. And by doing that, you're kind of allowing more less skilled workers to get involved, or more skilled workers on the side of the autonomy to get involved, but you're giving over kind of remedial jobs to these robots. That's what I think, or we think, is in the future. That's what's coming.
It is easier to hire a robot than a person, right?
They complain less, and they don't take any breaks. We do have.
Oh,
an
yeah, they
automatic-
break.
We have yeah, unless they break. We do have an automatic unloader that is autonomous like that. It's the loading that's more specific, and that's where it's like cobots and cyborgs.
It's funny to see a shift that way. I remember going to shows 25 years ago, and Rich Hoffman, who used to run M&R, go, well, the loading machine is going to be ready pretty soon.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
never,
no.
that pretty, it's either ready or it's not, and it never was.
It's too custom. And that's, in fact, a lot of the smart factories that I visited, it was like the day the cat got in. Like, you look at it and you think, yeah, if everything's perfect, but if your like supplier changed, does that affect? But then the vertical farming place was really interesting because they would measure the soil and everything going on inside the soil, and then just move the farm around to different lighting sections so that it could grow, and they were able to produce like some amount of food in this vertical space that would take so much land, and they kind of stabilized the climate by doing it that way. I don't know, if they've studied the nutritional aspect of that food, but that one was really interesting because that's organic, so it did have fluctuation to it.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. So, do we have any questions either about automation, about hybrid printing, digital printing, or about any of the samples that you might have seen? If you came late, you might want to come up afterwards and check out the samples. Yeah, you can grab some.
Go ahead.
Some of that's DTG. Some of that's what's called hybrid. It's screen printed and digital together on the same machine. It's a hybrid machine. So, for example, you might print the white underprint with the screen print quickly, and then the digital machine is on that same machine and prints over it.
This is hybrid. These are hybrid.
It's
This is hybrid. This is hybrid.
yeah. So the question was: is it like a toner based or is it ink? It's ink. It's not toner based.
That's hybrid.
It's a these in particular. The question was what kind of printer. This is a digital squeegee. It's called. M&R makes it. It's a big machine that goes on it. You have to have a 14 color screen printing machine to put it on, and then some of the others are their digital printer. I don't know what it's called, but M&R.
That's hybrid.
Some of them are. Some of them are. Other questions? Oh, I see an arm over there. I think it's a question. The question is this more environmentally friendly than screen printing?
So part of the goal is, yes, to make it more environmentally screen printing. In fact, that's a big focus of mine and all of the research and decisions that I offer. But it still remains to be seen in the end of the story. One of the big fears is technology changes really fast. So if I invest in this, is it going to change? And then I got to invest in it again. What I make a really big priority in the application that I do is that we make robust machines that will last a long time, and also that these systems are modular. If it's modular, so the digital squeegee's been around for like 6 years. If it's modular, it should be like plug and play. So you get, and all of these smart factories that I've been researching, they do this in the same style of this modular. So you're just adding on as the technology increases, but you're not necessarily replacing. And if we're conscious of that, then yes, it should be. And LEED certification would require that, yes, it is, or they won't give it to you.
And then I think also there tends to be less waste with
Overall, yeah.
in terms of certainly the sampling aspect of it, where you're not making a whole bunch of screens you get rid of, or
and it should be a focus of the whole process, the waste factor. It's the end of life manufacturing. What's happening at the end? And if waste is a big factor, that if you put that into your focal point, you can reflow your whole profit. So that's always been a really big part of it.
Other questions? How are you so awesome is the question.
I don't know. I know her. Thank you.
Is that your mom? Just kidding. Other questions, comments? How much do the printers cost?
So the digital Squeegee, like you would need a analog screen printing press. It works on a automatic press. Is somewhere around 200,000. When you get into DTG, you're looking in that same range, and then when you get into the indexing kind of DTG, where it's doing the white and the color, and every print is different, it really starts to increase from there. But you're using this base that's kind of equal on all of them, and then adding these pieces on. It's an investment, yeah.
Other questions? If not, I think you have a few minutes if people have questions and you're shy. Anyway, I want to thank Michelle Moxley, the Innovation Director of M&R. How about a hand for her? And thanks to Hanes and Hirsch Solutions and Impressions for putting this on. Thanks.